You ever get that weird feeling like you're falling right as you're about to drift off to sleep? Or have you ever wondered what the single most common lie in the entire world is? Well, today we're going to dive into a whole collection of fascinating and sometimes kind of shocking claims about our everyday lives. We're talking about the hidden truths that might be hiding in plain sight. Right, so let's just jump straight in. The source material we're looking at today kicks off with this really specific and honestly a little creepy command. It doesn't say why, it just says, don't do it. It really sets the stage for all the weirdness we're about to get into. And while that mirror warning is pretty strange, our source suggests that some of the most bizarre things out there are happening right inside our own bodies, a lot of the time without us even having a clue. So let's start right there. Okay, Section 1, Inside Your Own Head. We're going to explore a few claims about the weird and kind of wonderful things our bodies just do automatically. And we'll start with something that I bet has happened to almost every single one of you. You know what I'm talking about, right? You're all warm and cozy in bed, you're just on the edge of sleep, and then, bam, this sudden jolt, like you just stepped off a curb that wasn't there. It's a super common thing, but what does our source say is actually going on? Well, here it is. The source makes this really bold, kind of shocking claim that this falling sensation is actually a mild epileptic seizure. Whoa! Now that's a pretty intense way to describe something so many of us experience. It's definitely important to point out that this is not the mainstream medical view. Most scientists will tell you it's just a simple misfire in your brain as you're shifting from being awake to being asleep. And the weird stuff about sleep doesn't stop there. Apparently, the side you sleep on really matters. This source claims that if you sleep on your right side, you'll fall asleep faster than if you sleep on your left. It doesn't really explain the why, but some people think it might be because it takes some pressure off your heart, while others think it has to do with how our digestive system is laid out. So let's move from what happens when you're unconscious to something you do when you're wide awake. Even an action as simple as a sneeze, our source says, has this moment of high-stakes drama happening inside your chest. For 1 full second, your heart supposedly stops beating every single time you sneeze. Now, this is a really common myth, but it isn't quite right. What really happens is the intense pressure that builds up in your chest can change your heart's rhythm for a split second, but it doesn't actually stop. It's more like your body hits a tiny biological pause button you never even knew was there. Okay, let's shift gears from our own internal world to how we connect with other people. This next section is all about the people around you and these kind of unseen forces that shape our social lives, starting with something as simple as a kiss. It seems like such a simple act of affection, right? But according to our source, it leaves behind a much more lasting impression than you'd probably think, at least on a microscopic level. 3 full days. That's how long the source claims that traces of another person's DNA hang out in your mouth after you kiss them. Kind of wild, right? It's like a tiny biological souvenir of a moment you shared. So what is it that really draws us to another person? We spend so much time thinking it's all about looks, but this source claims we're actually more attracted to a person's scent than their physical appearance. Turns out our noses might know more than our eyes do. And hey, for something a little more lighthearted, check this one out. The source suggests that people who sing in the shower tend to be funnier than people who don't. Who knew there was a link between bathroom concerts and a good sense of humor? All right, on to our third section, truths and half-truths. This is all about the invisible stuff in our conversations, the deceptions, both big and small, that kind of shape our world. So I want you to really think about this. Of all the lies, fibs, and falsehoods that get told every single day in every language all across the globe, what do you think is the #1 most common lie? There it is. I am fine. It's so simple, almost a reflex. But according to our source, it's the most frequently told lie in the world. It's that little piece of social glue we use to get through the day, maybe to avoid a long conversation, or maybe just to convince ourselves that everything's all right. So if that's the biggest lie, then who tells the most lies? Well, our source has a theory about that too, and it all goes back to when we were kids. So the idea here, according to this source, is that kids who grow up with super strict parents are more likely to become good liars. The thinking is that when you're in a really restrictive environment, you learn to bend the truth as a way to cope or get by. And speaking of childhood, the source makes this really provocative claim about our schools. It says flat out that the act of taking tests is making kids less creative and, to use their word, dumber. Now, that's a pretty strong opinion, but it's one you hear from a lot of people who think that focusing too much on test scores kills creativity. Of course, the other side of the argument is that tests are a necessary evil to measure what students are actually learning. All right, for our final section, we're going to zoom out and look at some curiosities of the world, just some quirky, hidden truths about the everyday objects and things that surround us all the time. Get ready for a classic shower thought that might just blow your mind a little bit. It's so simple, it's actually brilliant. When you really think about it, the arms of a chair are just tiny little chairs made exclusively for our arms. You'll never look at a chair the same way again. And this one is just a cool little scientific marvel. Honey. It literally never spoils. Archaeologists have found pots of honey in ancient Egyptian tombs that are thousands of years old and still perfectly edible. It's because it has very little water and is super acidic, so bacteria just can't grow in it. And finally, our source wraps things up with this cheeky, self-aware little fact. Apparently, studies show you should like and subscribe, as you may become smarter. A playful little nod to the world of online content that we're all swimming in. And that's where we'll leave it, but it really makes you think, doesn't it? If there are hidden secrets in something as simple as a sneeze, or a chair, or a kiss, what other amazing, strange, and fascinating details about your own world are you just walking past every single day? Maybe it's time we all started looking just a little bit closer.